I had a basketball game that night, and the guy made the mistake of shooting over me, and I blocked it every time. I was like, I blocked it, but I didn't just block it. I was like, oh, not in my house. And I waved my finger like Dikembe Mutombo. And after 5 times of this, every time the ref called a foul on me. So early in the third quarter, I actually fouled out. And after fouling out, I told the ref, I'm like, I just want to let you know, I've been playing ball my whole life, and you're the worst ref I've ever seen. And he gave me a technical foul, and I was done. And just, I was kind of like a good sport always. I'd help my opponents up, my teammates up. I'd thank the ref after the game. That was me. Every day, we are blessed to interact with some of Colorado's most interesting people. On this podcast, Judaism with Altitude, we share their fascinating stories with you. And
we have a great time.
Powered by Riverside.
We're live. You hear us? We're live. Still figuring out this podcast thing on some music. Powered by Riverside. Shout out Riverside.
What do you guys think of the new intro? Do you like it?
I like it.
I'm waiting for feedback, but I guess we won't get it quite yet.
Right. It's not like a live stream, so no one is actually watching this as we go. So we just have to remember that.
Okay, your tea looks beautiful. What are you drinking today?
I am drinking piping hot English breakfast tea with creamer in it. Shout out to my buddy Michael. Michael's a videographer, photographer I became friends with in New York. We were working for H New York a bunch of years ago. He taught me about milk and tea, and it's just fantastic. It's life-changing. I saw him last night at our kids' school dinner. It's great to see him. I reminded him how he taught me this life-changing hack. So he taught me you take some hot water, you put it in the microwave so it gets piping hot, and then you take your tea bag and you just dip it in there a lot so it really gets intense. And you pour in some creamer, some French vanilla, freedom vanilla creamer, and it becomes very delicious, and everyone should try it.
Okay, then we have our recipe of the day. Thank you.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so today we are here to interview you.
Yeah.
So exciting.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for all the good feedback about this podcast in general and the first episode. We appreciate it. And we will be posting some clips on social media as well. But yeah, thank you for the great feedback. And if you're listening now, please go ahead and subscribe. And that will help us continue to get more and more amazing content out there.
Awesome. So I want to know about you. Who are you, right? It's so easy when looking at a person, or you think you know someone. Do you really? Let's get to know you a little bit today.
It's a great question. Okay. So I was born and raised in beautiful Denver, Colorado, very involved in the Jewish community. My parents sent us to Jewish day school, to a pluralistic Jewish day school. It was an amazing school. And we were raised pretty traditional. So we would go to synagogue pretty much every Saturday. We would drive there. And then we would have Friday night dinner, Shabbos dinner, basically every week. I wasn't supposed to have slumber parties on Friday nights. That was the thing. But Saturday after synagogue, we'd play baseball, maybe go to the ball game, and just kind of lived a normal life at that point. I was, as a kid, just pretty simple kind of guy. There's a lot of transplants who move to Colorado, and they're often surprised that us, folks from Colorado grew up here. I didn't spend my entire weekends camping. I never camped in my life here. I was an avid hiker. I did ski, went up every week with copper choppers, and that was amazing. But yeah, just lived a pretty normal, regular childhood. Again, pretty traditional, but not orthodox. Pretty knowledgeable, just because my parents did send me to Jewish day school. But it was a pretty normal upbringing.
So you say it's normal. Could challenge you on that? Every person thinks what they grew up with is normal, right? So for our kids, it's normal to eat some raw tofu maybe before it goes into the pot, or
Not for me.
everyone's used to what they're used to. What do you think were some of the biggest moments in your life, Jewishly, value-wise, other things? What are like the memorable experiences that make you?
Great question. So I think a big part of the beginning of the journey that shaped who I am today began on an Erev Pesach when I was 11, I believe. Erev Pesach is the day before Pesach, and our family went to the Village Inn. It was my grandma's like favorite restaurant, and I would always get chocolate milk there. I remember a big glass of chocolate milk and whatever like breakfast food it was. And I'm pretty sure it was the day before Pesach. I don't know why I remember that.
Passover?
The day before Passover. All the chametz is out of the house, so I think we just went out to eat out that morning.
There was like no food left. All the bread is gone, cleaned up.
Right.
Everyone's just getting ready for Seder, and there's no focus on what to eat today.
And I think that one of my parents, I don't remember which, they had the idea, wow, why don't we go ahead and send our children, the three of them, I'm the middle, my brother, my older brother, who was at the time 14, I was 12, so I lied, I was not 11, I was 12, and my sister was 9. Why don't we send them to Israel for the summer? Let's send them for 3 weeks to my uncle, and that would be a good thing. Let them go to Israel for the first time. So somehow my parents decided that'd be a good idea, and arrangements were made, and we ended up, I think, driving to Chicago, where we flew El Al to Israel. And as the middle child, I sat in the middle. My older brother got the window. My younger sister got the aisle. Then on the way home, my younger sister got the window. I got the middle, and my older brother got the aisle. So I'm a middle child.
Stuck in the middle, no matter what you do.
No matter what. But that trip was transformative for us, because what happened was we stayed with my uncle, my aunt and uncle, and my cousins, who were what they call Dati Le'umi, which is like the religious Zionists. And for the first time in our lives, I guess we're just exposed 24/7 to a observant Orthodox way of life. We got tzitzis, the fringes we wear on our undershirts. My brother, who was a bar mitzvah boy at that time, he was putting on tefillin every day. We were keeping kosher, and we're just kind of living that kind of life for the 3 weeks we were there. And then as soon as we got home, we landed in Chicago O'Hare Airport, and my sister and I ran as fast as we could to the first non-kosher pizza shop we could find in Chicago. And my brother's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm keeping kosher now." So I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's for a little phase. It's probably not going to last, and we're just going to hope that this comes and goes quickly." And sure enough, it didn't really pan out that way. And my brother kind of went on a very quick journey towards observance. It really resonated with him. And I don't know if he would describe that this was the impetus for his journey as well, but from our perspective, it appeared that way. And what happened was I ended up getting pretty, I guess, turned off and alienated, just because our family dynamic started to change. And that's one thing I think that happens when people become observant. It can challenge the family dynamic. It can create different ways of doing things, and it can change things, and change can be hard. And it was hard for me. And I called my brother, who began donning a black hat. I called him a Mad Hatter. And then I told him he couldn't wear his black hat to my bar mitzvah. So I was pretty bitter about this. And I was so bitter that I was actually interviewed in a book called Paper Plates, When Part of Your Family Keeps Kosher. Because I was a part of the family that didn't keep kosher. I was interviewed, and I said something along the lines, this is, I believe, the only book I've ever been interviewed in or quoted in. But little 12-year-old me said, when asked how I felt about my brother becoming religious, I said, at first I was mad because we could no longer order pizza into the house anymore. And when I would be dancing with a girl at a bar mitzvah party, he would come with a balloon and place it between us. So it made me want to rebel against Judaism. So that is my quote that I was quoted in this book. And so kind of started off a little bit slow, I would say, my journey towards more observance.
So how did it switch for you? First of all, I mean, I'll validate you first. I'm sure it's very difficult. I'm curious, what was like the biggest difference it made in your life when your brother, like, how did it really change the family dynamic?
It's a good question. I mean, there's just a set way that I always knew life to be for 12, 13 years. And now it just got different. And 12-year-old me just didn't really want anything different. I kind of like things as they were. If we would go out to, when we talked to you last week, we had our place called the Palace on Evans. It was great. I don't think it exists anymore. But we would go as a family there. A lot of it was food. We're both foodies. We can appreciate this. We couldn't bring in Pizza Hut anymore. We couldn't do those things. And it just kind of changed everything.
Wow. So your mother really had to change things around at home then.
Yeah. Just making a kosher home. And yeah, she did a lot of amazing things. Couldn't have been easy on them either. Definitely. As they saw that he was serious, they respected it. And there's I think a nice mutual kind of understanding that they had to be respectful of one another. And that's very important through these processes that the family members try to really respect the other side. And that can be hard. But
I'm sure your father.
I struggled with it. I called him the Mad Hatter. I didn't do a great job at respecting. And I'm embarrassed a little bit of how young 12-year-old Danny behaved back then.
You like the maturity that your parents had. I'm sure for your father it was also a challenge. I just think of your mother because as a mother, I relate to as the mother of the home.
Sure.
Wow. Okay, so then where'd you go from there? At what point did it switch for you?
Right.
That maybe you thought he wasn't so crazy anymore.
And I think part of the challenge was that until then I was kind of like the religious one in the family. I was the more interested one. So what happened was I had a friend whose father was the director of NCSY. Big shout out NCSY. And I heard about this opportunity to go to New York. It sounded awesome. Here I am, big guy in a little town in middle of the country in Colorado. And
I just give a shout out for the quick. I was just listening to this morning the newest episode of the Matchmaker podcast, so Lisa Ben Shalom and Rabbi Bernath, and they talk about dating from rural areas when there's not a lot of options. So
there you go. Rural Cleveland, rural Colorado. So it worked out.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to go to what I thought was a trip to New York. Now, I thought that meant Times Square. Maybe we see TRL, see Carson Daly. That's what I understood that to be. What I didn't quite realize was that was actually a gross town in New Jersey called East Windsor. No offense to all you New Jersey listeners out there. New Jersey is just lovely. But it was really this big conference center, big conference hotel in East Windsor, New Jersey. And the New York part of it was a trip to Brooklyn, to Flatbush, which was actually pretty cool. Didn't get to Manhattan, but part of the reason also is I was intrigued. I was in high school. I was in 9th grade. I was intrigued to meet girls with weird accents. I thought only hubbies, like old women, had New York accents, and I was interested to meet people my age with New York accents. I thought that was really interesting.
That's a great draw.
It didn't take much, and off we went. And I remember my buddy, really another close friend of mine, really pushed me to go on this trip. And I'll never forget, because he had started a journey as well, a little before me. And I will never forget, we sat on the airplane and we were learning Kitzer Shulchan Aruch. I guess he had just gotten a copy. And we were learning his halachos about just Jewish life, Jewish living.
How to live a Jewish life.
How to live a Jewish life. And we were serious. And I was never opposed to an observant Jewish life until what happened with my brother becoming religious. But theologically, it never bothered me. It always kind of made sense. I was never questioning God's existence. I didn't have big theological struggles in that way. I was just like a regular dude who played baseball in the summer and swam a lot. And that was my life. I just never kind of thought about it. Fast forward a little bit on this trip, we hear, you mentioned earlier, you just listened to a podcast with Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman, or Leib Kellerman. So they brought him in from Israel, this guy who was a graduate from, I think Stanford it was. And he told us about that. He wrote a thesis on religion, trying to disprove every religion. And he starts talking about, just for one, I think he had two presentations that blew my mind. One was what he calls permission to believe, where he goes over how belief in God is it makes a lot of sense, and how atheism is actually irrational if you really dig deep. And for a variety of reasons, you look at the complexity of DNA or the human brain, the mathematical odds of that just being by mistake, to me, makes less sense than there being a creator who created that. And he spoke that out. The idea of something who put everything into motion, a God who started everything. And it just made a lot of sense what he said. I'm like, yeah, I believe in God. It's never really questioned, but this just affirms it. And then there was a presentation called Permission to Receive. So once there's a God, but who says he wrote the Torah and he gave us the Torah? So he goes through different arguments that suggest logically that he did give us the Torah. And one of the big premises is based on the idea of, and this is how he wrote his thesis on religion, was how did all the religions start? So Judaism is unique in that we claim that every person alive at the time saw God give the Torah at Mount Sinai. There wasn't just a one-off revelation to one person in a cave somewhere. It was God speaking to everyone, giving us the Torah. And logically, if you go through, it's not really the scope of this podcast, of this episode right now. If you go through, it would be hard to fabricate a lie like that to mass amounts of people. And not only that, but a lot of what the Torah tells us it's beautiful and gorgeous. And to me, the most beautiful way of doing things, it's not always so easy. So if I'm trying to create a religion and I'm advocating that everyone just doesn't work on Saturdays, like, guys, follow my religion, but everyone else on the world is working Saturday to get ahead, but you can't. Sorry. That's not an easy sell, right? Or on the seventh year, you can't work the seventh year. Just leave your field and let it go. Why? Because you heard God speak at Mount Sinai. Well, if you didn't hear God speak, maybe you're not going to go for that.
We were just talking about that in Parsha class also. Like, if you have a religion, if you're making a religion and you tell everyone to work the field for 6 years in the seventh year to stop, but you'll still have what to eat. If that's not God-given, then your religion is going to end midway through the seventh year when everyone's starving. Like, right. A human being can't make such a promise.
So those talks blew my mind. And it made me realize I believe this. This is something I believe. And then on top of that, that Shabbos was just a tremendous Shabbos. So this program, I think Sara mentioned the last episode, Yarchei Kala, where they bring public school kids or kids from maybe just regular, non-religious day schools. They bring them together for this education. And there was a beautiful Shabbos experience where they brought a very popular Jewish singer. His name was Shlomi Dax. And it was concerts and singing and like the experience of a real Shabbos with 300 of my new best friends. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. I guess in Israel, I experienced Shabbos. And again, we did have a real strong sense of Shabbos in my home growing up, but not necessarily in the most traditional way where we shut everything else off and we just focus on everything immediately around us with no other distractions, no TV, no phones, no nothing. And I just felt that was so beautiful. I'm like, I want this one day. I want to bring my family up in this. I want this for myself. And I left that ninth grade mid-year experience realizing that I believe in God. I believe in the Torah. Again, I never didn't believe, but now I actually realize I did. I thought about it. I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. And this is a beautiful way of life. So I realized that once I believe all this, then I'm a type of person like I need to live my life in accordance with that. So I think immediately I tried to maybe switch to yeshiva right on the spot. And with my brother's journey, he had gone to yeshiva and switched from a private school, a non-Jewish private school, to yeshiva, and I was not necessarily going to go on that same path. So I ended up kind of staying put in my school, which was great. I had great teachers, learned a lot, and I came back kind of committed to this idea that I wanted to slowly start keeping Shabbos. And with these things, you have to take it very slow. And back then, we didn't have smartphones, so it wasn't necessarily as hard as it would be today because we're all addicted to our smartphones. But we had computers and we would drive and things like this. And very slowly, I began to take steps. Maybe I won't turn off lights during the night or all of Shabbos, or I don't remember all the specifics. Maybe I won't go on the computer. I won't turn on the TV. These kind of things. And then fast forward, kind of mindfully, slowly taking on more of Shabbos, we reached the summer of my incoming 10th grade year. And if you couldn't tell, for those of you watching this episode by looking at me, I am an exceedingly gifted athlete. And I am now, was then. And it was the first game of our summer baseball season for GW, George Washington High School. And I was the catcher. And I remember it was a Saturday morning. I was in shul. I had started walking to shul a lot with my friend and my brother. And I was in shul. I wasn't sure if I was going to play that day, if I was going to sit out Shabbos baseball games this year or play them.
Was your father coaching?
My father was coaching, and I didn't know what to do. And I decided, it's the first game of the year. It's maybe I'll think more about Shabbos after baseball season this summer.
Sounds like a logical decision.
Yeah. Again, I was on this journey, and maybe I felt I wasn't ready yet necessarily. So I went to play the first game. It was a doubleheader, and I'll never forget. This is like the third inning, and the guy hits the ball to deep right field, and there's a runner on second. The runner on second is coming home, and I'm catching. The guy throws it home. It's a perfect strike, perfect throw. And I apply the tag. And the umpire is like, show me the ball. And I show him the ball because I held on to the ball. And he's like, you're out of there. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. What's up? Let's go. The next pitch, the guy throws me the ball, and it just pops out of my glove. Like, I can't catch it. So what happened was I called timeout. Time blue calls timeout. And I play catch with the pitcher. And I can no longer catch because my thumb, I took my glove off and it started turning purple. And I realized, okay, this isn't good. So I was out of the game, obviously. My pops drove me to the hospital down the block.
After the game?
I don't remember. During, after, I don't remember what happened. Probably after.
As a parent. Well,
I had never gotten injured playing sports before. This is the third inning of the game. I was not sure I wanted to play on Shabbos or not. Go get the x-ray, and it's fractured. I fractured my thumb on my catching hand as a catcher. That's a problem. It's hard. I'm not like a hockey player. They play through that. I'm just a baseball player. We don't play through that. Shout out to all the hockey players out there. You guys are tough. And I broke my thumb. So I'm like, you know what? I'm ready for Shabbos. So at that point, beginning of 10th grade year, I started keeping Shabbos. And then the following winter break, I went back to Yarchikala, and I got inspired, just re-inspired, just felt the inspiration. And then I came back, and on December 31st of 2002, I had my last Chipotle. I was a big Chipotle guy. Chipotle kind of had its roots in Denver. I would go almost twice, 3 times a week. On Halloween and Thanksgiving, I would dress up like a burrito. And I got a free burrito because of that. It was great. And I had my last Chipotle because then I started keeping kosher. So at that point, in the middle of 10th grade year, I was Shomer Shabbos and I was Shomer Kashrus. And then I honestly thought I had arrived, right? I had a goal to live an observant life, and now I was observant because I was keeping Shabbos and Kashrus.
Isn't that interesting? That's like the litmus test in Judaism of how religious are you? How much is Judaism a part of your life? Is do you keep Shabbos? And do you keep kosher, right? It's not how often do you go to synagogue. Do you go every day? Do you go 3 times a day? Do you only go for the high holidays? It's really everything that's based in the home.
That's a good observation. Yeah. And I'll get back to that in a minute, because I began to struggle with that as I got to college. But just briefly before getting to college, there was a big moment, which was how I met you.
I was going to ask if anything was different that year.
So I went back to Yarchei Kala my third year. And at that point, I felt like I had arrived. I'm like, why am I there? I think I needed some more inspiration in life. Like, those moments of inspiration are fleeting. And like, you need to embrace them whenever you can, because we're human beings and we're not always inspired. So for one level, I wanted that boost. And another level, I thought, maybe, I don't know, maybe something might be different that year.
Did you?
Yes. I and Sara shared a very brief version of her version last week. So tune into episode 1 for that. My version was a little different. It was the opening session at Yarchei Kala, and I peeked over the mechitza where the ladies were sitting, and I noticed an interesting looking girl that I thought would be cool to work up the courage to talk to. But I went to a small private school, and every girl in my class was like a sister. So I didn't really have experience talking to people I didn't know, let alone public school girls. She was a public school girl.
That made me really cool.
Yeah, and I was a private school. I was a day school kid. I didn't know how to talk to public school girls. And I was probably just not going to talk to her because I just didn't know how. But then fast forward, it was like this second night, or like the third night of Yarchei Kala, and it was barbecue night. And it happens to be I'm a vegetarian. And I was a 2-sport athlete, big guy, had a teenager, needed to eat a lot, like kind of like I am now. And on barbecue night, all there was back then, so there wasn't like the awareness of vegetarians like there is today. It was different. So all they had at barbecue night back then, they didn't have Impossible Burgers or Morning Stars, nothing, right? What you did is you took a sandwich, you took a bun, you put ketchup in the bun, and you put pickles in that. And that was your dinner as a vegetarian. So I go up to the buffet table. I saw no one is around. It's kind of awkward what I was about to do. And I literally just started piling pickles on my plate. Now, it happens to be last night we were at a dinner where there were fried pickles. And Sara and I was like the only like veggie option at that particular buffet table. There were many other options, other tables, but at that table it was like meat, fried pickles. And we had a moment because we both were there piling on pickles on our plate. So what happened? So I'm piling on these pickles, and then suddenly I hear a little voice behind me saying,
"You like pickles, don't you?"
I heard that voice. You like pickles, don't you? And I turned around and I saw it was the interesting looking person who I was terrified to talk to. So I thought to myself, literally, like as this is happening in real time, I thought to myself, if you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted, would you capture it or let it slip? Yo, his palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti. I was thinking this literally as she's waiting for me to respond. Forgot to mention I'm a avid Eminem fan. D12, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent. I grew up with that. Forgot to say that. Okay. So there's now a literally 15 seconds passing while I'm thinking what to say. Like, this is my chance. Like, when else am I going to talk to her? So what I said was, pickles. Pickles.
That went well.
Yeah, here we are. What, 21 years after that happened? 22 years? We've been married, what, almost 18 years?
And then what? We probably both walked back to the table that we were sitting
what just happened?
Across the table from
each other. We haven't been sitting at this same table because she became friends with my sister. Thank God. Thank you, Jess. Appreciate it. Big shout out to my sister for becoming friends with Sara. And yeah, it was probably a little awkward, but it did open the way for conversation because eventually we did start talking a little bit. And the night before we were leaving, she asked me, she said, our bus is leaving first thing in the morning. We're driving back to Cleveland. It'd be nice if you would wake up and like say bye. So I'm like, oh, wow. Like on the inside, I had the butterflies and little fireworks just exploding. So excited. Whoa, what does that mean? She asked me to say bye.
That doesn't always happen in dating, by the way.
What did you mean by that
It's
too?
not always fireworks.
Were you? What were you? Why did you ask me to say bye?
You make me blush.
For those not watching, she's blushing. Did you like? I guess you liked me. You wanted
Yeah.
me to say bye. Okay, so I didn't know that. Maybe you could have told me I like you.
It's probably obvious.
It was, yeah. I think it was obvious, but from my perspective, looking like it seemed too good to be true. It really did. I don't want to get corny here, but it did seem too good to be true. Like as we got to talk, it seemed like where you wanted to head and where I wanted to head was in alignment. I really thought you were an interesting looking person, and I really valued what you valued and shared goals and dreams for myself that you shared. And it seems like we had a lot of shared, like I said, values. So it seemed too good to be true. And I had very little experience with any of this. So I didn't want to like believe that what I was maybe thinking and feeling was real. So I woke up that morning at 6 a.m. And I thought to myself, well, maybe she told a lot of people this. It'll be awkward. Then she'll know I like her. And like, if she won't like me, that'll be crushing. So I woke up at like 6 a.m. I sat up in my bed and I'm like, should I go down or should I not go down? Should I go down? Should I not go down? Should I go down? Should I not go down? And I'm like, I'm not going down. I'm ordering my jammies. I'm going back to sleep. And I went back to sleep. She probably didn't love that, right? I mean, I don't know if you remember what you felt.
A little
She was
disappointment.
probably disappointed.
But
Yeah.
we still emailed afterwards.
Yeah, so we did email afterwards, and there is an interesting idea that we read about on Passover, Shir Hashirim, Song of Songs by Solomon, King Solomon. And there's a beautiful passage, which is God is depicting, I'm knocking on the door. Will you let me in? He's talking to the Jewish people. I'm knocking on the door. Will you let me in? And the Jewish people are like, nope, got my jammies on. Don't want to get dirty. Sorry. It's kind of like what I did a little bit. Like
You had the opportunity
had an opportunity and
for connection.
Right. So we started emailing. She would email, let's say, every, she'd send me an email. I'd respond. She'd wait like 5 days. Then I'd respond. I'd wait 5 days. And we went on like that for like a year. And we saw each other again at the next Yarchei Kala. And that was my senior year in her 11th grade year. And we really connected a lot and just realized more how on the same page we were. And I did forget that you did come in 3 months after we met for a ski Shabbaton, where we had technically our first date. We took a lesson, snowboard lesson.
With your friends?
With my friends. And after the lesson, it was a half-day lesson, we went up the lift. I'm like, oh, we could do a green. Greens are easy. We realized after a half-day lesson, we couldn't do a green. And she had to get down to catch her bus. So we started sledding down the mountain. Then we got pulled.
It was a blast.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Until we got pulled over by the ski patrol.
Can you imagine sledding? But you don't have to like walk the sled up the hill. And it's like a legit hill.
It's a legit hill. Right.
So fun.
Apparently it's not so safe because the ski patrol pulled us over. They're like, sorry, you can't do that. We're like, well, we have no way down. Like we can't stand on this thing. Look, we got you. Come with us. So we rode the snowmobile down with them. And that was what we like to say was our first date. So as time is passing now, it's now 12th grade. I was on the hammock one Shabbos afternoon with my buddy, and he looks me in the eye and he says, Danny, Serlo's the one. And I had the goosebumps. I'm like, I said, nah, I don't like her. And besides, what would a girl like that want with a guy like me? And I denied it because I never told a soul. And eventually what happened was, it was about March of my graduating year, 2004. And I realized like I'm going off to college and might meet new people out there. But before that happened, I just wanted to I needed to know like if there was the future here. So I did something I never did. And I basically told her I liked her. What did I do? I wrote a very long email where I said, when I watch One Tree Hill, I see Nathan and Haley, I see us. I was just at my first ever wedding. And as the bride was walking to the groom, I saw you walking to me. And with the OC, Marissa and Ryan, Seth and Summer, that's us.
Such a romantic.
Such romantic. A long email. And I laid it all out there. I laid it all out. And then I was buffmandan10 at AOL.com, and she was dude at 1302 at yahoo.com. And I sent the email. And then I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I tried to unsend it. And what happened was I realized you could only unsend on AOL. You can't unsend to Yahoo. You had Yahoo, so I couldn't unsend it. The next day was a whirlwind of emotion. And we didn't have smartphones, nothing. I didn't know how she would receive it. And I had a basketball game that night. And the guy made the mistake of shooting over me, and I blocked it every time. I was like, I blocked it, but I didn't just block it. I was like, oh, not in my house. And I waved my finger like Dikembe Mutombo. And after 5 times of this, every time the ref called a foul on me. So early in the third quarter, I actually fouled out. And after fouling out, I told the ref, I'm like, I just want to let you know, I've been playing ball my whole life, and you're the worst ref I've ever seen. And he gave me a technical foul, and I was done. And just, I'm like, I was kind of like the good sport always. I'd help my opponents up, my teammates up. I'd thank the ref after the game. Like, that was me. But I was an emotional wreck and roller coaster. So that night, the Colorado Avalanche were playing the Detroit Red Wings. And I went to that game. In the second period, I got a phone call from her for the first time ever. And I'm like, hello? I can't hear you. It's really loud. Can we talk later? And sure enough, she said, yeah, sure. And then sure enough, I call her later, and it went straight to voicemail because it was 2 hours later in Cleveland than Denver. So I checked my email, and I saw she wrote me back.
Who wrote you back and went to bed?
And went to bed. That was a good yawn. For those I didn't catch that, it was a great yawn. Wrote me back, and she said she felt the exact same way that I felt. And from there, we started dating. And we started dating when I went off to college to Brandeis. We dated long distance, Brandeis to Cleveland, Boston to Cleveland. There was an AirTran flight for $99 from Akron, Canton to Cleveland. We saw each other once a month. Then your sophomore year, you went off to Israel, and I joined you with a semester abroad. But just to backtrack a little bit, when I started college, we were now dating, and I also felt like I was religious, like, getting back that I was keeping Shabbos and I was keeping kosher, and I arrived. But what I noticed as the winter got closer and it got colder, the walk to services every morning felt further. And so I started getting lax in my attendance of minyan. I would daven in my dorm room, and I just felt myself slipping. And eventually, as we discussed last week, your freshman year, you took a gap year to go to Israel, to seminary to learn. And I realized, like, if you're learning now, then I need to be learning too. And I felt myself slipping, and I need to learn. So I started Daf Yomi. There's a student-led Daf Yomi class where you study a page of Talmud a day. And I started getting into learning. And what I realized is that in life, it's like a downward escalator that you're trying to climb. And if you're not climbing, you're going to go down. That's just how life works. And so through learning, that kept me climbing. And I realized that I've never arrived. And in life, we've never arrived. We've never gotten to where we need to be. We always need to be climbing. And I found through my learning that it was a constant wellspring of inspiration throughout the mundane days of life. We always need to feel that inspiration to inspire ourselves to connect. And that was my way of doing it. And thank God that was incredible. So that helped propel me on my journey as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was I was able to surprise you in during your year in seminary, because I told you I was visiting for just winter break. But in the end, I didn't tell you that I was going to be at Hebrew University for the whole semester. And I'll never forget, we got on video somewhere. I don't know if we could dig it up, but
old school camera.
The old school cameras. I recorded when I told you I was staying for the semester. It was very special. And that year was probably one of the best years of our life, I would say. We were now dating 2 years, but we never lived in the same city. And suddenly we were in Jerusalem. And
shout out to long distance dating.
Yeah.
It's possible.
It can be done.
Yeah.
And we were living in Jerusalem. And the way that we dated was that we would meet up at the bus station. We'd get like a bagel or something. We got hot chocolate. There's a great hot chocolate spot on Jaffa Street before they gutted it to put in the light rail.
Coffee time.
There's
different flavors of hot chocolate.
Yeah, there are like 30 flavors of hot chocolate.
Put like a chocolate bar in it and other things.
Yeah, tremendous. And we just realized more and more as you shared what you learned with me, I shared what I learned with you. I was able to go to spend some time in yeshiva in the afternoons, and we just deeply, deeply connected. And it just became clear that yes, while we had a 4-year plan, wait till we're both out of college, when we had such a deep love of each other, it wouldn't be healthy or make sense to delay getting married. So even though I was at the time a sophomore and you were not even a freshman, when we got back from Israel that summer, I asked the question. I proposed, and I said, I greeted you in the airport, and as you'd get off the plane, and I made a sign which said, "Sarah, will you marry him?" with an arrow. And I found this lovely couple who was traveling to Las Vegas, and they held the sign, and it pointed to me. And as you got off the plane, there was a big crowd that gathered, and they said, "Roses are red. Was once stung by a bee. You're really pretty. Will you marry me?" And at that point, everyone would gather around and was like, "Hug her, kiss her, do something." And I'm like, "No, we were Sherman Agia. Like, it's not like that." And I gave you the box with the ring in it. I'm like, "Here, take that." When we got to the car, and I had a jar of pickles waiting for you.
That's a question I've always wondered.
Yeah, go. Save space here.
You wrote, "Sarah, will you marry him?" with an arrow. How come you didn't say, "Sarah, will you marry me?" And you hold the sign. You had a plan with someone else. I'm just curious, what was the
I thought it'd be fun to include more of the just locals.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. Like to just
it's clever.
bring more people. You got to switch things up a little bit. You came to Denver to get engaged. You knew why you were coming. I wanted to surprise you, so they let me get through security and go with the ring. So I wanted to just do something a little different that you don't see every day. So I know the hour is getting late here, so I want to just keep things moving. But yeah, so at that point, obviously we were now engaged. We got married 6 months later. And then I did feel like you completed me. Sounds corny, and I'm sorry to be corny, but I felt like a rounded, completed person. And it just inspired me tremendously to continue my learning, to continue growing. And I think around the time we got engaged, actually, I was debating between going to become a lawyer. Always interested in law, and become a rabbi. While I was in Israel, I spent a lot of time learning in yeshiva, and I was able to kind of teach and share kind of what I knew with people. And I just felt like what we call chiyus. I felt great life and excitement by doing that. And I decided, in part maybe because I felt I was too fresh from the SAT. I'm like, I don't want to study this LSAT. I also want to do something at the end of the day I find deeply, deeply meaningful to try to inspire Jews. So I decided to pursue the rabbinic route. And I started kind of making plans to prepare to get into rabbinical school. So I studied a little bit in the Boston Kollel, had chavrusas there. Ended up, as I finished up school, we were able to teach a little bit in the day school. We miraculously were able to just find income as college kids who were married, teaching. And we, after graduation, made our way over to YU for smicha. And
okay, I see more about that.
Yeah,
I just remember that moment of when we were going back and forth, and whichever year it was, and you were always set to be a lawyer, studied pre-law,
yeah,
and Brandeis education. And then,
big shout out to Brandeis, by the way. They are one of the few colleges who've been incredible throughout what's going on in the world today, and I'm proud to have gone there. So thank you, Brandeis.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I just remember sitting on your parents' old couch with your pops,
Yeah,
and just having that conversation of lawyer, rabbi, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
Asking your dad for advice, and I don't know. I just remember that as a pivotal moment. I wonder if that stuck out for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, how you really, when it came down to it, made that decision.
When it came down to it, I've always thought about that at the end of the day, right? After 120 years, we believe that we're going upstairs, and God's going to ask us, did you do what you were supposed to do in this world? I created you with a purpose, with a mission. How'd that go? Did you do it? And I thought about just the way I felt in Israel while being able to teach, and how inspired it made me, and how pumped up I got from it. That I felt there was something spiritual there in that kind of calling. And I felt called to do that. And after 120, I'm confident that if I go on that path, please God, it'll be the right thing that I was created to do. And no, that's not to downplay the importance of a legal profession. And we need lawyers, and thank you all you lawyers out there, doing what you do. But I remember in college I learned about just the O.J. Simpson case, and it just seems like so much of that is theatrics, and who puts on a better show. And it's not as much necessarily about arriving at the truth. So I didn't think with my personality I would jive well. I don't think I'd be happy doing that.
I was very self-aware of you.
Right. And again, it's not to say we don't need lawyers. We do need them, and I thank them. But it just wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. So I had this dream of making a lot of money as a lawyer, and I was poised to do that, please God. But I realized at the end of the day I wanted a life where I'd look back after 120 years and be grateful that I chose what I chose, and I and made an impact in a deep and powerful way. And I felt that the rabbinic path would allow me to really reach that more than any other. Good question, though. Yeah. So
then you went to rabbinical school. We moved to New York, and here you are as a rabbi in Denver, Colorado. What do you think for you is like the thing you're most passionate about as a rabbi that you like to give over? What message? Like, what's it all about for you?
Wow, that's a great question. I want to turn the question on you because I don't think I asked you that question. I thought that's a great question. You're saying, what message do I wish to convey to as many people as possible?
Yeah, like that keeps you going every day. They keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Why? Question. Why?
Yeah, we're part of a extremely special people, right? We, a beautiful. We come from somewhere very special, right? We believe that we are here to be a light unto the nations and to live lives of purpose and meaning. And we share the wisdom of our forefathers that we got from Mount Sinai, and we're part of this incredible chain, right? We are right now the last link of this very, very special chain. One thing I forgot to mention that's really defined a lot of how I view the world is I am a grandson of Holocaust survivor. And my grandmother, who I never met, she said when my brother was born at his bris, she said, with your birth, I now see with clarity that Hitler has lost. You are the proof that Hitler has lost. And that message has stuck with me my whole life. And I remember in college, I had the opportunity when I was studying abroad at Hebrew U to go to Poland and Ukraine. And we walked around the camps. And all I could think about when I was walking around the camps was, what can I do to stick it to Hitler? How can I pounce on his memory and desecrate his memory the most? And I realized for me, as to live a deeply Jewish life and to get married as soon as possible and to bring more children into this world, to raise them in lives of Torah and mitzvos and Judaism. And that's always had a big impact on how I think of things. That we are the last link in the chain, and I am dedicated to share the beauty and wisdom and brilliance of our Torah with as many people as I possibly can. Life is very challenging and very difficult. And our Torah has eternal wisdom that can guide us through the lives that we live. And I want to share that beauty with people, because people that don't have that, I feel for them. And it's sad that they don't have that, because they're part of this, and they should have access to its beauty and its brilliance. I thought a lot during COVID how for so many people it was just such a horrible time. And for me, it was a special time, having a beautiful family to be able to spend more time with. And a lot of people felt isolated, but synagogues opened up, with all the rules and guidelines in place, of course. But during Shavuos, after 3 months, synagogues opened up, and suddenly this way of life, these familiar things, like kept us sane. It kept us going. I'd go to synagogue twice a day and pray 3 times a day, and we had Shabbos every week. The time still moved on, and we kept track of it, and we kept growing and living our lives normal. Kept learning with my study partner every morning. And it's kept us grounded in a scary world. So it's a life mission to share this beauty with so many people out of a love for them, that they deserve this. They deserve to hear about this. A lot of times people never heard about this or never had access to it. And people should minimally be aware of it to be able to decide if this is something that they want to make a part of their lives as well. One other thing along these lines is part of our Jewish faith is something called bitachon, which is trust. And we trust God. And we trust that whatever is happening, there's a reason for it. And people can go through life so scared and anxious and nervous and get so down on themselves. But if you understood that everything that's happened is for some reason, you didn't get into the medical school you hoped you would, or the job you'd hope you get. But if you realize that you weren't supposed to somehow, that's life changing. And if we can share that with as many people as possible, that's what I want to be doing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Can I turn the question on you, or where?
I'm not good at this game. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar though, and that's why we work so well as a team, is that our values really align. That exactly that approach, that there is a bigger picture to life, and to the extent we appreciate and see that there is a bigger picture, all these little details we don't have to get bogged down by. We can find the joy in them, in the joyful things, and the painful moments. You embrace the pain, and it's all, but still to realize, to keep sanity, to know how to function throughout the ups and downs of life is it's such a gift, right? There's so many self-help books and tools and podcasts these days, and we just have such a gift that's really, it's been eternal. It's been with our people this whole time, and I really think it's helped us through all these years of persecution we always find ourselves in. And like, how do we get through it? I really think it's a secret, is this deep understanding of the bigger picture of life, and God as a giver and like orchestrator of the whole thing.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So just to end on a lighter note, we skipped this a little bit in the last podcast. So maybe just to go through. So there was high school, there was college started for you, Israel for me. You came to Israel. We both went to finish college. Well, you finished college. I started college in Boston, right?
Yes.
We just go through the timeline quick, a little opportunity for Jewish geography. We're in Waltham, Massachusetts, as a young married couple. Moved to Brighton, Massachusetts. Enjoyed Jewish life, being closer to Tom China and JP Lex. And then what? Where did we go from there?
Right. So after graduation, we moved on to New York, to Manhattan, where we live near Yeshiva University, where we were started rabbinical school, which was amazing experience. And you were taking the shuttle every day to Stern, like the married lady shuttle to Stern. And I was going over to Yeshiva, and we spent, I think it was a year and a half there, give or take. We had started a job as youth directors at a synagogue in Connecticut. So we'd commute there every other Shabbos. And then after a year and a half being in Manhattan, we realized it was just too hard. We had a young baby at the time. So we
just starting to hopefully crawl soon, and cockroaches.
Cockroaches are, and like we were ready for a change. We're both out of towners. So the opportunity arose to move up to that community in Connecticut. So we lived there for a year. It was really great. I was right near a big famous yeshiva there, and I spent some time there. It was amazing. Got to interact with some great kids, some high school kids, middle school kids that we worked with there. The commute into yeshiva was very hard. It was an hour and 40 minutes each day. It was a 44-minute express train into Midtown Manhattan. And from Midtown, it was about 40 minutes or so up to Washington Heights, Manhattan. So it was a big trip. During that time also, I had an internship with Aish New York, just working with their programming for college students, which was amazing. And that's ultimately, I think, what shaped my desire to go on this outreach rabbi track. One other way that shaped it actually was when we were in Boston as a newlywed couple. The Aish rabbi there, Rabbi Wiener, shout out, he's a great guy. He saw this cute young couple, like, oh, why don't you guys volunteer for us and learn with some of the people in our program? And we both did. and we loved it. It was tremendous, tremendous. And we're like, yeah, this is what we want. So that's kind of what led us to our path that we're on. And so we were in Connecticut. After a year being there, we had the opportunity to go to Israel for my program had a campus there. And I think even we had an opportunity maybe to start working like more full time in outreach in the city. But we wanted to go to Israel. I wanted to have that year in Israel experience that you had. I never had that yeshiva year in Israel, and I wanted that. So we had the opportunity to go do that. And those were again some of the best years of our lives.
So simple.
Our second child was born there during the second year, I think. So simple. I would learn in Jerusalem, so holy and pure and special. Just a great life, right? Just
It was the first year she was there.
the first year, okay. But it was a tremendous life going to the shuk, doing shopping and the shuk, and it was tremendous. And we honestly wanted to maybe stay there forever. We wanted to make Aliyah, and my Rebbeim said that would be best if we did that, go to America first and be a rabbi for a couple of years, and then when our oldest kid starts like kindergarten, it'd be best to be back in Israel, just because it's hard for children at this important ages to move back and forth from different countries. So that was kind of the plan. I was working a little bit at a yeshiva in Israel as well, and we went back to Albany, where we did outreach on campus at SUNY Albany. It was great experience.
It was like a different kind of college experience we had.
Yeah, different from my college experience. I didn't know about fraternities or this kind of stuff, and I learned all about that while on campus. It was great.
I was married through most of mine. I'm pregnant through some of it too. Yeah.
And the students were just tremendous. And after 3 years, we started looking for communities in Israel to go make Aliyah. And what we noticed after a couple of years is like some of the students like were really like growing in their Judaism, and it seemed like maybe we're making an impact. So we thought like maybe we shouldn't go to Israel. Maybe we're meant to not be in Israel. Maybe we're meant to be here. And so it was like a big thing. We went to ask a great rabbi in Philadelphia, asked the great rabbi what we should do. And he said, based on everything I told him and everything he'd seen in his life, he'd seen a lot of questions every day. He's taking questions from people. He said he felt we should stay in America. And ultimately, we felt that for our family, it'd be best maybe to relocate to a different community. And so an opportunity arose to move to Denver. And from there, we started a young professional division of this organization we work for now. And that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
8 years later. So we moved here in 2015. So 9 years, coming up on 9 years.
Remember that feeling of like, we were so excited to go back to Israel and, spend vacations instead of at amusement parks. You go to the olive oil factories and I don't know, things that were just more
during like Chol HaMoed Pesach, like go to the kotel, right? Yeah. Instead of like going to the zoo,
Yeah, it's such a different existence. But then we got back after summer break and I was calling all these communities like in Israel to see where we would fit in. And then all our regulars came for Shabbos and it was just too great to let go of that life.
Right. And we want to be using our skill sets and backgrounds for the right things. And we want to do what God put us here to do. And we hope and pray that this is it here. And we do the best we can.
Yeah.
So, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys for listening. And stay tuned for our next exciting guest. We will announce it at some point. Stay tuned.
Have a beautiful day.